Starting now.
Meeting is being recorded by the host or a participant.
Yes. I'm recording. So welcome everybody to this month's Read What You Want book club discussion. And just one little announcement first, which I will send an email about afterwards. Next month, we're doing the traditional book club. That's sort of, and I am sorry to say that I did not send out titles to choose from earlier. So I have arbitrarily chosen a title for us to read. So it is going to be The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. By Taylor Jenkins Reid. That's the one. So if you need a copy of the book, let me know.
I do, tell you right now.
I'll set one aside for you.
Okay, I'll go into the library. Thank you.
Yes. My pleasure. And Addie, do you need help downloading a copy?
Okay, may I call you? Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I got The Seven Husbands, and then what happened?
The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Of Evelyn. Okay.
Who's it by, Katie?
It's by Taylor Jenkins Reid.
Hugo. Reid. Taylor.
Okay, thanks.
So if if you speak with Shirley or any of you had another friend who had joined and then she had some technical difficulties, but if you have anyone else who's interested in setting a copy aside, then just let me know.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Why did you choose that book?
I chose this one because it has been on a wait list for quite some time. I've read a couple of reviews about it. It sounds like it's a good one.
Okay.
And I thought it sounded like it's a little bit different from what we usually read. So
okay, sounds good.
I like to leap on the newer ones sometimes when I can.
I have a few names of books that are supposed to be fabulous that I haven't read them yet because I'm on a wait list at the library.
Yeah.
But anyway, when you're ready, I'll let you know what they are. I don't know how you want to start.
Okay. Well, you mean for future book clubs?
For now, do you want?
Well, for now, like for talking about, like first, let's start talking about the things that we have read.
Okay.
So who wants to go first? Addie, Rona? Who wants to blow us away?
I'll let Addie go first since I always talk too much.
The perfect amount, but okay. Addie, hit us.
I enjoyed The Collector of Threads very much indeed.
Ooh, what was that about?
Well, I hate to give the whole plot away, but it's about a person who went through the agony of racism and abuse and et cetera. And she handled the situations by distributing patches of color and thread and conducted her lifestyle that way. It was very well written, very good. Kept me going all the way through.
Okay. The Collector of Threads.
Or The Thread Collector. Either way it works.
All right, so it's a biography?
No.
Fiction.
It's fiction, absolute fiction, yeah.
Okay.
But well done, and it holds your interest right through the whole. And it's the ending of most fiction books that I'm reading are elongated. It goes on and on. The ending, and this one ended. I kept my interest. My mind didn't wander at all towards the end of the book.
Excellent. That's it's set during the Civil War. Is that right?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. Okay. The Thread Collectors by Shauna J. Edwards.
Yeah, how she
and Allison Richmond.
Yeah, it's basically about how she created maps for people of color to escape She created maps on pieces of patches of cotton, and these soldiers followed these maps on the cotton and escaped. It's amazing.
Cool.
Yeah,
Very cool. And based on true stories, true events, or do you know?
it has to be. You
Yeah.
can't make that one up.
Okay. Good one. I haven't heard anything about that one until now.
Excellent book.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Have you read anything else recently?
I'm reading something now, but it's not stunning. It's not marvelous. It's not something I would read again.
Okay. What's
Yeah.
that?
Uh,
What's your mediocre book?
My mediocre,
Yeah.
many mediocre.
Just gonna get my phone, hold on.
Okay, so many mediocres, but this one blew your hair back.
This was a good one.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I read a lot of mediocre books too. I mean, like
Yeah.
I was speaking with someone else recently who she puts out a recommended book list, and she said that every time like she does her recommended book list, she does it once a month, and she kind of just puts everything that she's been reading on it. And I think, well, I'm happy to talk about all of the things that I've been reading, but I don't recommend everyone that I've read. You know,
Yeah.
like this is, yeah. Um, Rona, show us more than the
Well,
top of your head.
I found myself this past month, I don't know why, I didn't know what to read. I have so many books that are good. Now I have two good ones that I'm going to tell you about that I haven't
Okay.
read. But I found myself going back to Ruth Ware and Ann Tyler
Uh-huh.
for some reason. And I literally walked into the library, went up to the shelf, and I said, you know what, I want to read. I wanted to read because I knew we were having this, and I wasn't reading for some reason. And there's something about their books that I like. Not all of them, but some of them. And I couldn't find The Woman in Cabin 10, because that's
Okay.
supposed to be a wonderful book by Ruth Ware, right? Or is it
Yeah.
on, I forget. So I looked through the shelf, which I find is interesting sometimes, to go actually look for yourself instead of going online, and which I always do, you know. And then you say, oh, look these books, and I look at them, and I found one of Ruth Ware's book, The Lying Game. The
Okay.
Lying Game. And it was not bad. Like, you know, it was okay. Like, it's a type of, I like a book that I can't put down. Like, I want to know what happened, and I can't put it down. I don't know, am I still there?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Oh, there. Okay. And it wasn't bad. I liked it, but I'm still waiting for The Woman in Cabin 10. I mean, did you read that one?
No, not yet.
Oh, it's supposed to be good. But anyway,
I haven't
that's,
read The It Girl yet either, and I know you
oh, I
read that
like
and
that.
loved it.
That's why. Yes, the It Girl. It was, yeah, I don't
It
remember if
Girl?
we had, it's
Yeah.
something that I read on my own. But what I wanted to tell you about is the two books that I heard very good things about, and I can't get it at the library. I keep losing them.
I can't either. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's called The Lost English Girl by Julia Kelly. Did you read it, Katie?
No?
Supposed to be fabulous. And The Matchmaker's Gift by Linda
That's on a
Cole.
Matchmaker's Gift. That one's on a wait list too. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yes,
read
so
that.
those are, and I noticed them, if they're on a wait list, then I know people are heard about it, but those are the two books I want to read, and I wanted to mention it to you. The Matchmaker's Gift looks wonderful,
Addie read
absolutely
it.
wonderful.
Yep, I read Matchmaker.
Oh, and
Tell us
Yeah.
about it.
It's just, I think there's nothing new about the middle of the book and the end of the book and the beginning of the book. And you know, it's predictable because we're talking about a matchmaker.
Yeah.
Obvious, you know, it's the definition of a matchmaker. Most people know.
right.
Yeah, so it's good, but I didn't find it wonderful.
Oh,
It
isn't
didn't blow
that
your hair
something?
back.
No, not at all.
That's
Because,
amazing. And a lot of people are talking about it, I find. And The
yeah.
Lost English Girl, I don't know. I heard that was very good too.
That one, I
Julia
know
Kelly.
Julia Kelly. I'm
Lost
pretty
English
sure that we have an interview with her on our website, like on the YouTube channel. I think
Oh,
that Danielle, feel like Danielle may have even interviewed her twice. I think the first
wow.
one was something about a garden. And then she might have been interviewed like in the last year about this one. The name is very, very
Oh.
familiar, but it's not jogging my memory.
Mm-hmm. And that's really the story. I find I look for books that people are talking about, you know,
Yeah.
that other
Recommended
people are
her.
talking about. Do you do that too? Like rather than going to a book list or, you know, what are people talking about? And I tend
Well,
to want to read that.
so this is my thing is well, I have a fair number of books that I kind of have to read regularly. So the next
Right.
book that I will be reading is The Guest List by Lucy Foley because I'm doing it for a book club next week.
Oh, I heard about that. I wonder if I read that
And
one.
so
I
it's
guess.
like a mystery thriller, and I'm looking forward to reading it because I have not been reading mystery thrillers lately. Um, a little before we started recording, I mentioned that I've been listening to a lot of nonfiction. So, one of the stories that I listened to, and it was so long, but it was so enjoyable, is one that I've been meaning to get to for a long time, and it's called All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot.
Nonfiction.
Yeah, and it's the stories of a country vet in England in sort of
Oh, sounds interesting. Yeah.
like the early 1900s. And I found it just absolutely delightful. It was like
No
I looked
kidding.
forward every time I got in the car. I was reading it, and normally I only listen to audiobooks when I'm in the car, but instead I was like putting on headphones, and while I was making dinner and stuff, I was listening to it as well because I just wanted to get back to the stories. It was very nice. And then now, what did I listen to recently? No, right now I'm listening to a book that was recommended to me, a nonfiction. It's called Breath by James Nestor. Now I'm just in the middle of it, but it's really interesting. It's talking about how as humans evolved, evolution doesn't necessarily mean get better and better. It means changes. And so one of the ways that we have changed, um,
That's interesting.
one of the ways in which our physiology has changed with evolution was that our breathing got crummier kind of thing because of our protruding noses. And so if you look at like the skull structures of people from right now versus people, a few hundred years ago even, there are changes in the ways like in like the sizes of our breathing passageways, etc. And we don't breathe fully the way that anyway, it's a little bit like it is a scientific examination of it, which is how I justify listening to it and not thinking that I'm just being hippy dippy yoga girl, about like, oh yes, breath is so important. But it's interesting too that seem to be a bunch of researchers recently who are really interested um, in the ways that we breathe and how it affects our health and how it
Mhm.
affects kind of all kinds of other aspects of our physiology and the ways that
That's
our bodies work. Um, but then I've also been reading a lot of garbage.
You're one of us. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So
Amazing.
after I read all of those Elizabeth Strout books, which was great last month, I was just sort of like, okay, but now I just want kind of crap. So I started off with a book that really sucked me in for the first two-thirds of it, and then I still haven't finished it. So it's called Mrs. Everything by Jennifer Weiner. And the first two-thirds of it, I was so, so, so absorbed. I was just sucked right in, and all I wanted to do was read, and I was turning pages like crazy. And then it got to the third part, and it follows two main characters, these sisters, Bethy and Jo. And it gets to the third part, and they're sort of in middle age. Like, so it starts off in the 50s, 60s in Michigan, and follows them like from when they're kids to growing up. And in the third part, then they're sort of in their 30s, 40s. And I have taken issue with some of the ways that one of the characters is being portrayed. And so I
Mhm.
set it down so that I wouldn't get angry and that I would
Really?
come back to it. Just
What,
because
what
I
do you
feel
mean? Elaborate.
so one of the characters is queer, and she, um, so while she recognizes as a teenager that she likes girls and all this stuff, then she ends up getting married. So like after university, she ends up getting married to a man, and she has at the beginning of the third part, she has two kids. And I understand, so like this is challenging for me as like coming from a heteronormative background, is that like I can understand wanting to sublimate your sexuality or part of your personality or anything to sort of make it more palatable to the culture and the world that you're living in. And this is what she's chosen to do. Okay. But when it talks about, in the third part in particular, when it talks about her relationships with other women, like just like, as in like just like neighbors and everything, like her interactions with them, it has her like really hyper aware of her sexual orientation in that like she never wants to really be left alone with them, which I don't like
Oh,
that characterization because, for example, as a heterosexual woman, I could be left in a room with men I don't want to sleep with, you know?
right,
Like,
exactly.
so
Yeah.
the idea that just because
It's contrived.
someone
It
likes
sounds
women, that then
contrived.
she would somehow be physically attracted to every
Right,
single woman. I mean,
right.
like, I don't
It's
think
not real.
that's so that's
Right.
what I found frustrating. And then I like I'm coming back to it. I'm kind of like jumping back to it a little bit every now and again, but I haven't finished it yet. I also read a romance book called The Rewind by Alison Wynne Scotch. And that was a fun read, I thought. It was these sort of university or college, sweethearts have this huge falling out at the end of their relationship in college. And then they like 15 years later or something, they're brought back together for a mutual friend's wedding. And out like on this college campus and everything as well. And it was cute. It was a fast read. It was one of those things like it was under 24 hours of a read. It was just sort of enjoyable, like a romantic comedy.
Still,
And then I just started recently when I couldn't continue with Mrs. Everything, when I needed a break from Mrs. Everything. I came across this book called Verena Palladino's Jersey Italian Love Story.
God,
Jersey Turner.
what a title. That's amazing.
What a
What?
title, right? And it's a bit of a like it's kind I know that there's a love story involved in it, but like it's also a family story. And the beginning of every chapter has like a Jersey Italian word or a couple of words with like their definitions of how they're used for this particular author, basically, who grew up in Jersey. It's Italian. And the main character, I'm sorry Roseanne's not here today because the main character is 70. And another prominent character in it as well is her mother, Sylvia, who's 93.
Wow.
And also then Verena's children, well, mostly two of her children, one of her like birth children by blood, Donatella, who's just kind of, she's the youngest and she's just kind of she makes poor choices, poor decisions. She has a poor decision making process. And the other kid is like is Polly. It's her like a kind of adopted son. So he was a friend of Donatella's when they were young, and he was disowned by his family because he was gay, and so he was brought into this household, the Palladino household. And it's about like kind of everyone kind of trying to find their own way while at the same time not necessarily I think it's interesting how communication is often portrayed and like communicated in books, especially in these books that are like, this is just, it's not highfalutin at all. It's just everyday life, right? But it kind of, it highlights in my mind anyway, these different ways that, you know, it would be so easy if we just told people what we meant or like how we felt, or and so often we don't do that. And that's just like that's that's just part of life, I guess, is that oftentimes we don't have those longer discussions, and or we don't say anything because we don't want to make waves, or we don't want to open a can of worms. And but sometimes cans of worms need to be opened, you know?
Mm,
So so yeah, so that's the other one. And those are my main ones in the last month.
mm. Interesting,
I
very
know, a lot of
interesting.
garbage, but I'm coming back to the highfalutin soon enough.
You ever feel that you're reading a book and like you put it down and you just don't want to continue reading it, like it's just not interesting you, but you force yourself to finish the book? Should you force yourself to finish a book? Do you, Addie?
Sure, often.
You often for it. Do we have to? Why do we have to? Somehow I feel I have to be, if I don't finish this book, it's a complete waste.
Yeah,
Like, do you have
guilty.
to finish? Hmm?
I
Guilty.
Yeah, I used to feel that way. And now
Yeah.
the only books that I force myself to finish are ones like from book clubs. If
That's it.
if I'm not
Other,
feeling it, the way that I look at it, and I talked about this before, is that I think timing is really, really important. And
right.
so
That's it.
sometimes, like, there
Yeah.
are books that I started that I hated, and then that I picked up again months later or a year later, and I was in love with. It's like,
It's amazing.
why would I make
Yeah.
myself hate something when I could be reading something else that
Yeah. Yeah.
going to enjoy?
I somehow feel that I'm failing if I read this book and I'm supposed to, or everybody says it's one or whatever. I should be reading the whole thing. Give it a chance. And yet I just don't, I just don't get it. But I feel like I'm a failure somehow if I don't finish the book,
You're a loser, yeah.
Think about
You
it
start something, you have to finish it, right? Isn't
think
that
about
the
it
how?
like relationships. It's like I'm sure that we all know people who are married or partnered with other people who make them very, very happy. But the thought of you being with that person is like
Yeah, it's
never
true.
in a
It's true.
billion years, right?
Million years. Everybody has a different taste, of
So
course. Of
sometimes
course.
that's what it's like with books too, is that sometimes it's a book that someone, oh, over the moon, completely in love with. And then we read it and we're like, why? And it's either
Yeah.
because of the
Yeah.
writing, because of some element in the story that just niggles at us, like I was talking about with Mrs. Everything. Though I do think that I'm going to go back to it because I'm still curious about where those characters go. But if you're not curious about the characters, do you know what I mean? Like, if you're not, then why, why
That's
bother?
true. And
Again,
you may not be, because it's just like it's everybody's different, and everybody likes a different kind of book, a different kind of story.
yeah.
I think I like to read things that take me away. You know what I mean? Like I love a book that if I can't put it down, and if I can put it down and not go back to it, I know it's not for me. But if I can tell from the first 4 or 5 pages, and and if it's, oh my God, I can't, then I know that I like that. And that usually that author writes like that, gets you
Mhm.
sucked in. And
But
that's the
this is,
kind of author.
but the other thing too is that, like we all have different sort of moods and so like it might be too that you read
Yeah,
something by an author and then you pick up something else by that same author and it's like, and it's
it's the same
again,
old,
it's
same
a
old.
combination of timing on every different level, right? It could be you, it could be that particular book, maybe what that book just isn't one of their best, or they were in a, that's something that will speak to someone else, or yeah, I think that life's too short for books you're not interested in.
That's good. So
Not so
you know
short.
what? I'm not gonna. So from now on, I'm not gonna put myself through that torture. I'm just not.
No, because the book's still going to be there. Like it's not like it's going to explode.
Right.
It's
What's
not
the
going to
difference if I?
self-destruct if you don't finish reading it in a,
Word
like
scattering.
even with the library loans, right? Like in the 3 weeks, okay, so it goes away and it's like, well, if you don't want to know what happens with the rest of the story, then don't force yourself. Maybe like, yeah,
It's true.
come back to it some other time
But
when
I
you,
guess it's like a TV show, or you know, everybody tells you in these series on Netflix, did you watch this?
yeah.
And then I start to watch it, and oh, forget it. I mean, everybody said to me, The Crown. Oh my God, it is so fabulous. I was so bored. I didn't care about this dysfunctional family and everybody thing. You think, what's it with you? You know, like it's amazing what people like, and these Netflix series and everything. I wonder if that's taking over books a bit. I don't know. What do you think?
Well,
For sure.
but too, like this is one of the things that I like about these read what you want discussions,
Mhm,
especially like we read all kinds of different things, right? And so it's that, if say that I was not a fan of thrillers, right? So that when you're talking about Ruth Ware, I'd be like, okay, well that's nice for you, but that's not really my thing.
mhm.
But then when you talk about like the Matchmaker's Gift, say that I'm into or the thread collectors, and I love historical fiction, then I'm like, oh, and it's about the Civil War. Oh, and that's like, oh, you really like this. And also, of course, with Addie, the Addie is like she preempts her recommendation by saying, there's one book that I've read recently that I really liked. I've read a bunch of other ones, but meh, you know,
Right.
that makes me curious.
Yeah.
And even when it's a book, well, like, see, I'm a bad example to use as this person, the hypothetical person for the book recommendations, because I read a little bit of everything. I don't have any genres that I'm like, no, I'm not going to read that. Um, but if it's, say that I have recently read again, Where the Crawdads Sing, right? And so then
Oh,
say that
Oh,
one of
yeah.
us who's talking then says, oh, so I had read Where the Crawdads Sing, and then someone else recommended this book. And so I read this book that really made me think of, that sort of like there's a book called something about I think it's called What the Fireflies Knew. And I haven't read it yet, but when I read a review about it when it first came out, I was like, oh, I wonder if that might be something kind of in the same vein for
Fascinating.
someone who liked Where the Crawdads Sing. But
insects. Yeah.
but Where the Crawdads Sing is a tough one to have like a read alike, we would call, um, in the library world, because Where the Crawdads Sing is this combination of so many different genres that it has this very much cross genre appeal to offer to all different kinds of reader.
I read the Crawdad Sing and I loved it, loved it, loved it. And then I had the misfortune of watching the movie, and
Oh,
it just, I'm telling you, it just ruined it. I was like so upset at that movie that I just like ruined the fact that I love that book. I
yeah.
love the book. It's amazing that I don't know. It's like I don't know why they do that. It just doesn't work, I
But
find.
Rona, there are other people who saw the movie and loved it, right?
Loved it.
And
I
so
don't. Yeah,
this is
that's
part of it
true.
too, right?
Did
It's
you
that
see the
same,
movie? Did you see the movie?
still not,
No, don't see it. Don't see it. I'm
still
telling
not.
you, it just
I
ruined it.
even like, so there are lots of books that I've read that have been turned into either movies or
Series.
TV series or something. Exactly. And it's so hard when you have already like established a relationship with these
That's it.
characters in your mind,
Exactly.
and you have a very clear sort of idea of what they're like. So I've had that with several different
Hmm.
books, and sometimes I can appreciate both. So my one, which I've probably talked about before, but The Princess Bride.
Oh, The Princess Bride. You know,
Oh,
I've never seen that movie, and they say it's a classic.
oh, I've seen it so many times I could recite it.
Really, a
Um,
classic.
yeah,
Everybody.
but I first saw the movie, and then my aunt and I had this discussion where she was like, the book is better, but she'd never seen the movie. And I said, the movie's better, but I'd never read the book. So then I read the book and she saw the movie. And then the next time we saw each other, I was like, yeah, I think maybe the book is better. And she was like, I think the movie might be better. So,
I gotta
and then
read, I gotta
as the
watch that
years went
movie.
on, it's one of those things now where you can really appreciate, or I can appreciate the value of both. But it's hard when it most of them are pretty hard to translate.
Do you think that all these series and all the books being made into series and everybody's watching all these series on Netflix, do you think that has had a negative impact on people reading books? Do you think maybe people feel it's too slow? They could just turn on the TV and they can, do you think it's had any kind of an impact on book reading, all these series and because
I
that's
don't
all
know.
people talk about. Did you watch this series, that series, more than did you read this or that? I don't know. Do
But
you
I mean,
find
there
that?
are some people that I mean, like that I've heard from who, like, because they watched whatever it is, then that got them
Mhm.
to read the book, right? A lot of kids who were introduced to, for example, the Harry Potter series with the movies, then went on to read the books. Um, and it's a different experience. I think that, I mean, it's a very um, unsubstantiated theory of mine that I have, that I think that if you are introduced, like if you start with the book or the TV show, then you can
Mhm.
move to the book much easier than if you start with the book to move to the TV show or the movie,
I
because
have no patience to sit and watch the show, but I have patience to sit and read the book. That's I find this watching the series to me is frivolous. I
uh,
find it a little frivolous, and reading the book is just it. I find there's more substance. That's how I find it for some reason. I don't
well,
watch those series. I hate them, and everybody loves them. And I'm like,
do you
I
have
don't know what
any TV series that you like?
they own nothing on Netflix. Very, very. Except I did like what was that comedy thing? The Canadian comedy that was a series. What
Schitt's
was that
Creek?
called? Schitt's Creek. Oh my God, I thought that was brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. But that wasn't a book. That was just
No, and
that
that
I
would have been
loved.
really hard to translate into like
Yeah, exactly. I thought
literary,
that was that's
because
the
it
only
was the
thing.
timing
That's
and
it.
the interaction of the characters.
I loved it, but everything I have no patience. I find it them I just have no patience. I find the acting terrible. The thing
The
I
Succession.
don't know what it is.
Oh,
What?
Succession. I've heard a lot about that one.
Oh
Yeah,
yes, see
that's
that's
very well
another
done.
one that
Yeah,
everybody's.
yeah.
Did you like it, Succession?
Yes, very much indeed. But it goes on and on and on and on and on. Yet there's like 45 editions of Succession.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe you hit the nail on the head. I
Actually,
just don't have the patience to sit there for hours, but I can sit there and read a book, but it
Yeah,
doesn't
maybe
go on
just
for
stay away
hours and
from the
hours.
adaptations.
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to think of an adaptation that that sort of brought something new to the original. I mean,
I wish
Did
I,
you
I
ever
wish
read
we
the book
continue with All in
Defending
the
Jacob?
Family.
you wish they would continue with All in the Family,
Absolutely, that was so
a
clever. It was so
reboot,
real.
but
Yeah,
without Archie.
yeah. Well,
Did you read Defending Jacob? That was a book and made into a movie, and I think that was the one book and I loved the movie as well.
Okay.
I thought it was absolutely
pending one.
fabulous.
Defending Jacob.
Oh yeah, I heard about it.
It's a wonderful book. Wonderful. I read it a few years ago. It was
Mhm.
wonderful.
Write that down.
And also there's something wrong with what's the name of that? I
Kevin.
forget the yes.
That's Tilda
Excuse me,
Swinton
I
is in
don't
the
think
movie.
Defending Jacob was made into a movie. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But there's something wrong with Kevin. That was made into a movie.
Yeah.
I love both books. And one of them, I think Defending Jacob was supposed to be made into a movie. I'm not sure.
I think that
Maybe
I
it
had
was
heard
made
that
for
too, but I don't
TV.
remember whether it
It
was or
was
not.
on TV, I think. I don't remember. It was quite a few years, but I love those two books, and I haven't
Mhm.
forgotten. I like the miss, like I couldn't put it down. I don't know.
Gotta go.
They just got me, both of them. Defending Jacob was a wonderful book years ago. Everybody was reading it.
I'm just going to interrupt and say, Addie, did I just hear you say you have to go?
Yeah, I have a Zoom class from Cummings.
Okay, well then we will say goodbye to you.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
See you
Addie.
at the next one.
See you at the next one. And let me know if you need help downloading, Addie.
Thanks a lot.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Katie, for everything.
Talk to you soon.
Righto.
Katie, if
Bye.
you want to end it, that's fine with me. You don't have to stay just on my cord. Maybe you're busy, go
Well,
and do
this
what you
is
have to do.
I can take or leave. We can wait a little bit to see if Carol joins, but I mean, I think that we talked about our different books that we were
Yeah, I think we
interested.
did. I think we did. I think we did. And I don't want to keep you. I mean, I could talk your ear off and listen to you for hours because I learn from you. But you don't have to for me. I can speak to you anytime.
How about we split the difference? How about I stop the recording here? We've given
Okay.
our book recommendations to our
Yeah.
people and when they get the
Yeah.
link. So we'll say goodbye to everybody else, but you stay on the
Yeah.
line and we'll continue
Okay,
chatting.
for a few minutes, and then you can get back and go. You can back and read a book for an hour, or half an hour.